Hi, I'm Taylor Smurl,
And I'm Tommy Smurl.
and this is
Neat.
Neat. You're a fancy man today, Dad.
Yes, I am. Well, we're going to talk about the whiskey sour. That's a very fancy drink for a fancy man, so I thought I'd wear a fancy hat.
I like that it's a fancy hat with just like it's like a t-shirt. That's like a sports t-shirt, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like one of those breathable, like you could do some like calisthenics in that.
yeah. That's one of those wet, dry shirts, works real good.
I like
Real
that.
light.
Very fancy combo.
Well, I was dressed casual and I thought, you know what? This drink deserves a little fanciness, and I don't want to change my shirt, put on a tie or anything, but by God, I can wear a hat.
Can always wear a hat. Well, I didn't get the memo, but that's all right. You're fancy enough for both of us.
Well, there's a tip of the hat to you.
Yes, as Dad mentioned, we are making whiskey sours today. Hopefully, you checked out the podcast all about it. It's a classic cocktail. It's delicious. It comes from a long lineage of classic cocktails. Perhaps descends from the original cocktail. If that piques your interest, you should check out the episode. But it's also way more importantly, I think it's Dad. It's your favorite cocktail right now, at least at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. After beer, this is the drink.
Dad's favorite cocktail after beer.
That's right. Top of the list. Top of the list.
Right under the cocktail that is known as beer. So we're gonna start with the classic whiskey sour. But there's you could make the classic whiskey sour with egg white or without egg white. You could make it with bitters or without bitters. Like the original classic first recorded recipe was just whiskey, lemon juice, and sugar. Like that's it. So anything beyond that, I guess you could argue is not classic. I happen to prefer mine no egg white with bitters. Dad, how do you feel in the realm of things?
Well, when we first went over this, that's the way you taught me, and that's the way I tried it, and that's the way I like it. So I'm going to add the bitters and leave out the egg white. I have not had one with egg white, to be honest, but I'm not really interested in that. Why tamper with something so good? If you want the egg white, go to Boston.
Exactly. Egg white whiskey sour is often called a Boston sour, as Dad made mention to.
And if you listen to the podcast, you would know that.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be shaken. And usually it's served in a rocks glass or up. Kind of depends on your preference. I always follow the rule of if it's got an egg white in it, I serve it up. If it's no egg white, I serve it on the rocks. So once again, preference. A lot of this stuff is negotiable. But in either case, I'm going to start with a couple dashes of bitters. Gonna do a nice strong 2 ounces of whiskey. You can do bourbon or rye. I happen to prefer rye. Classically, the original recipe calls for either bourbon or rye. We both got our old overhaul.
Yep.
Good old overhaul.
Good old overhaul.
Now I'm gonna follow traditional sour proportions. That old adage: 2 3/4 3/4. Some people like their whiskey sour a little drier, a little sweeter, so these are those little proportions that get nudged around, but just to keep it simple on my end, I'm going to do 3/4 3/4.
That's what I got. 3/4 lemon and then 3/4 simple. And in case you make your own simple syrup, we save these little spice bottles, clean them out, and then put our simple syrup in there so we can save it in the refrigerator.
That's cute. I like that.
And it works very well. They're very easy to store, and it keeps it longer.
Yeah. Simple syrup will last a long time in your fridge. I mean, sometimes I get it. You're prepping for a party or whatever. It's easier just to buy it if you're busy. But simple syrup is something that I always recommend making because it's just sugar and water.
Simple.
It's simple. It's simple.
Thus the name.
Yeah. All right. So we've got our optional bitters, our whiskey, our lemon, our sugar. We're going to shake this up.
Woo! It made my fancy hat bobble on my head.
That's how you know it's done.
That's right.
Okay, I'm gonna pour it. I've got some ice in my rocks glass. I'm just gonna pour it over ice.
Got the ice in my glass.
Now, traditional garnish for a whiskey sour is usually either a lemon, a cherry, sometimes both. I decided for the classic one, I would do both. I'm going to do a little flag. Flag is just where you sort of loop a wheel onto a pick like that. See?
Oh, I just did the lemon wheel.
That works too. Cheers.
Cheers. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
Oh, I made that one good.
What do you like about this drink, Dad? Tell me about it.
Well, first of all, I like lemonade. So this has a kind of lemonade overtone. The whiskey, you can taste the bite from the rye. So that kind of adds to it, and it doesn't taste sweet. Even with the lemon taste, it doesn't taste sweet. So it's just a good, nice, dry drink, something that you could sip on, and you don't have to gulp these down. You can sip on it, you can nurse it, or if you really enjoy it, you can gulp it down and make some more, make it bigger. It can be a big drink because it was originally a punch.
Yeah.
So you can make it a full glass if you want instead of the smaller glass.
Yeah. And I mean, something's definitely gained from the effervescence of shaking the juice versus just building it in the punch build. But I do think it's something that you could still make in a slightly larger batch and it'll hold its own. Like it's something that doesn't go off if it sits in a glass a little bit longer,
Yeah, a lot of times to save myself a trip, I'll double the batch up when I make it and pour one in the glass and then have one still in the shaker for when I drink the one that's in the glass, I can pour it. Now, of course, the second one will be a little bit more watered down, but it's still good.
Yeah.
Hate to put that one down to make the next one, but
I know I want to move fast, so don't want that to get too watered down. Yeah. All right. So next, we're going to do two pretty standard variations on the classic sour. Dad, you're going to do the Ward 8, I believe.
Correct.
And I'm going to do a Gold Rush. We'll walk you through the ingredients as we get there, but we're just going to clean our tins real fast and get right back.
All right. Ready if you are.
All right. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is a very simple, sort of a modern reinterpretation of the whiskey sour. And the only change out is that we're taking that simple syrup and we're replacing it with a local honey syrup. So same proportions all around. This shows you the really simple flexibility of the drink that I'm just going to sub out that. I'm going to keep the bitters in, but that's it. And it doesn't seem like it'd be that drastically a different cocktail, but when you're dealing with such simple flavors, this is, I think, a really simple, delicious twist on it. You get a little bit of that rich honeyness. It's going to balance out with the rye nicely. You're just exchanging a bell for a whistle. You're not adding any. And Dad, what are you making us?
I am going to make a Ward 8, which basically all I'm going to do is substitute out the simple syrup and the lemon juice, and I'm going to leave out the bitters, and I'm going to put in a mixture of lemon and orange juice for my sour, and I'm going to use grenadine for my sweet.
All right. I'm going to put bitters on mine. Yours does not have bitters, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I've got a couple dashes of bitters for my Gold Rush. Now, what we have in common, I believe, is the same pour of whiskey.
Right, 2.
So I've got my same measure of lemon juice, 3/4 ounce.
I've got my lemon and orange juice already mixed in here. I put in two ounces of each into this.
All right, and then for my sweet, I've got my 3/4 ounce of honey syrup.
And for mine, I have my grenadine syrup.
Icing up our tins, ready to shake it up. Yep. All right, for this, I'm just going to do a simple lemon wedge.
I've got another lemon wheel.
All right,
you notice the difference of color because of the grenadine.
Yeah, that's a beautiful color.
Yeah. Cheers. I like that. That worked out good. I kind of like the tartness of the original whiskey sour better. This isn't quite as tart, but I like it. It's a lot different taste. I had never tried one of these before. I just saw that when we were doing the podcast. I saw that recipe on there, and I thought it looked interesting. That's really good, though.
It is. I mean, I think that's an interesting sort of swap because grenadine, usually it depends on if you're using fresh grenadine, which is going to be from pomegranate juice, which is going to be a little bit more tart and bitter, versus like some of the ones you get in the store are going to be a little sweeter. But it kind of makes sense to me because the orange juice is going to add a little bit more sweetness, but then your grenadine's going to add a little bit more tartness, a little less sweetness. So I guess the goal is you balance those things out, you know? That's that math that I've mentioned before in bartending, where you can make swaps, but you gotta balance the math. For my Gold Rush, I mean, this is such a simple like alteration. It's delicious. I think the honey, it just adds a little bit of richness. It's a little bit of a different texture too. I think it's a little bit of a richer texture, but like you can take this and you can do a rosemary honey. You can do rosemary honey, and then instead of doing rye or bourbon, do a Scotch. Like there are little tweaks you can make to this very simple build, and you can get really exciting. You'd be charged too much money for them on a cocktail menu in New York City builds out of a very simple idea.
Yeah, you get the basic ingredients and you can do whatever you want. Try different things. And if you like different liquors, try it with different liquors.
Yeah, that was the biggest breakthrough for me for learning how to cocktail, was that it's not that I have to shove 300 recipes into my head. It's that once I learned the formulas and sort of how to do the math with those formulas, you can just make things and you kind of understand how things relate to each other. So that's really, this is one of the key building blocks of bartending.
Well, one of the things that I like that since I've joined you in this podcast and doing these videos is it's demystified bartending for me, because I've always been intimidated about it. The only thing that I would ever do is buy a mix that's already made up, where all you got to do is add alcohol, or in some cases you don't even do that, you just add ice and they're already made up. And you're not really serving yourself well if you're taking that as this is what this drink is like. This is what a whiskey sour is like. No mix, I don't think, adding the alcohol or not, is going to taste like this with fresh juice in it.
Yeah.
And your simple syrup that you made on the stove, I mean, you know, it takes 10 minutes to make the simple syrup on the stove, and you have that ready, and you can use it in all kinds of drinks.
So and don't be intimidated. Embrace the knowledge that we offer you. Mix up some drinks at home, and if you need a easy, non-intimidating place to start, the whiskey sour is a great first drink to try to make.
Yeah, I recommend
Simple.
it. Mm-hmm.
Simple as the syrup in there, or the grenadine, or the honey syrup, or the maple syrup,
or your co-host.
What? Are you talking about me?
No, your co-host, me. Simple.
Hey, it's nothing wrong with simple. That's what we're learning today.
That's right. Follow the KISS method.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. I hope you have enjoyed this as much as we have, because I've got 2 cocktails to drink now. That's great.
I'm continuing to enjoy this.
Yeah, you're just going back and forth. You're just,
and I've got plenty of ingredients when we're done.
There you go. Yes, thank you for joining us. If you would like to find us on our socials, we are Neat Boozecast on Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to email us, we are neattheboozecast@gmail.com. If you would like to help support us, we have a Patreon where you can get stickers and coasters and bespoke videos made just for you. That's right, cocktail recipes designed by myself or Dad, and we shoot videos where we make them for you. So if that sounds cool, if you're curious about that, check that out. And a huge, massive, giant thank you to all of our active Patreons. You are the reason this podcast gets made. So thank you for being you. Thank you for being there. And if you want to have discourse with a bunch of like-minded individuals, we have a group over on Facebook, right, Dad?
That's right. Meet the Boozecast group.
That's it. All right.
Facebook group. Something.
Facebook. Just Google Neat Facebook, Book Face group, people, cocktails.
Neat Booze Face Group Cast.
Neat Booze Face Group Cast. Yes. Please change the name to that.
I need another drink, bartender.
All right. Well, hey, thank you all. Thank you, Dad. I have been Taylor Smurl.
I've been Tommy Smurl.
And this has been
Neat.
I'm glad you broke out your fancy hat for this.
Yeah, that was a fancy cocktail I had.
Yeah. Do you feel fancy now?
I feel fancy, oh so fancy. I feel fancy and wild.